welcome to part 2 of the Roman Polcha podcast with Marek Polcha. If you have not checked out part 1, highly recommended. Go check it out. We discuss Marek growing up in rural Pennsylvania, some of his experiences, what makes Marek Marek, and his opinions on Pennsylvania, the state, and his opinions on wrestling, which is a big part of his life. In part 2, we're going to discuss another big part of Marek's life, which is his academics and his class presidency. So that's where we're going to take off with this part. So, Marek, the first question I want to ask you in this part 2 field is, what is it like to be class president?
So, people are going to find this answer very interesting in and of itself. It's not as glorified as it seems, In the movies, popular starting quarterback, he's class president, all this stuff, gives speeches, all this stuff. Pretty much behind the scenes, what it's like being class president is just you're the main proprietor in organizing the events that are going on with your class, whether that's raising money. This year I'm a sophomore, so that'll be planning sophomore tea, which should be pretty interesting. So I was class secretary my freshman year of high school, and did anything change very much? No, not really, other than kids will go up and talk to me and ask me all the questions like what's going on and stuff, and if I'm allowed to, at some point I'll have a funny class president story that will come up.
So, I know this, the audience doesn't know this. You didn't run for class president. You are the class president, and you did not want that position originally. Or at least, whether or not you wanted it was up in the air, but you kind of inherited the position. So, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting story. So, as I said before, freshman, I was secretary. We had a very successful president as a freshman. She was very smart, very good, and she had a lot on her plate, so she decided she didn't want to run for president. And at our school, we have ranked choice voting, pretty much. It's a different kind of system where essentially the position is less important, if that makes sense. So I wrote my letter to my principal saying that I wanted to be secretary again, but then there was a predicament because there was only one person that wanted to be president, and that person didn't get enough votes to be an officer. So I'm sitting in Spanish class, second period, and my teacher gets a call and says, Marek, you're wanted in the principal's office, who shall be nameless. And I go up there, and I'm like, oh crap, what did I do? Everyone's like, oh my gosh, Marek went to the principal's office. I'm like,
everyone's been there.
Oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing, whatever. So I'm walking out, and
is there another student with you?
Yeah, so I'm walking down there, and another student that I knew was an officer last year, also running again, comes out of the room, and I'm like, okay, so we're probably not in trouble. So I walk down there, the principal's like, sit down, guys. And he's like, I'm going to have an honest discussion with you guys, blah, 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 all this stuff. And he says, the person that ran for president got the least amount of votes, and you two, I see you guys as really natural leaders. And he said that, asked us like if we cared if we were president, and we were both like, no, I'm fine with doing whatever. And then he was like, well, I have an idea of who I think would be a good fit for the role. And whenever he said my name, I was just like really honored like, my face flushed a little bit. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so honored. Like, I have to do this. And I was like, 100% yes. So that's how I became class president. Interesting story.
So, just to give the audience a small background of how class officers work and what you and I have both done previously as officers at Greenwood, before I move on to the next question I'd like to ask you. So, essentially, at Greenwood, as Marek is describing, the ranked choice voting system, basically, since our school is so small, we have the following positions. We have president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, historian. And typically, they work together really as one collaborative unit, but in that order is the prestige of the position. President, number one prestige. Vice president, secretary, treasurer, historian, lowest prestige. So those are the 5 positions. You put your name on the ballot. If there's 10 people that run, whoever gets the most votes gets to choose of the 5 positions what they want. Then whoever had the second most votes chooses of the remaining positions what they want, etc., etc. Marek ran as a freshman for class secretary, was elected, did a fantastic job in student office. I really didn't get my head on completely straight with my academics until a little later in my high school career, and really whenever I started to really get into politics, my junior year, I had run and also was successful in obtaining the office of secretary. My junior year, we planned 2 major fundraisers as a team. Those fundraisers were a sticky bun fundraiser, which raised just great funds. It was out of the Ye Old Diner in State College, very famous diner in Happy Valley, and we sold Krispy Kreme donuts, made our funds, spent the majority of those funds on prom. So that was kind of the main deal. Junior year at Greenwood is the most busy year for an officer team because you have to plan the prom, which is the biggest event for the juniors and seniors. Mainly, it's just fundraising is the main thing, and organizing class events. And now, as president, you say there hasn't really been that much of a change. Besides maybe more people coming up to you, that's not that surprising. So it's not as glorified as it may seem in 3rd grade whenever you think of being the president of the class. So I would like to just ask you on that, how do you work with others as it is kind of one collaborative team while also still being able to assert your authority in positions where you may need to as president? Or is it 100% a vote usually amongst the class officers, or is there certain times when you can kind of use your executive power to get your certain way, or have you not really gotten to a point where you've had to negotiate in that kind of way yet? How do you work with others?
So usually I work pretty good with others. Like, we have a group chat. Whenever we're doing stuff, I'm an active communicator within the group chat, and an example of me just like being myself as a leader. At the beginning of the year, our first task as officers was to make a poster for homecoming, and I kept on putting stuff in the group chat. People were like shooting down my ideas over and over again.
Mhm.
There were sometimes people would just not respond to my text messages, and it got to a point where I was just getting frustrated, and I was just like, fine, I'm just gonna take this into my own hands and deal with it myself. Luckily, I have 2 really good friends that are girls in my grade, and they're very artistically talented, and I just was able to get them to help a lot. And eventually, after I just got it off the ground and going, then everyone seemed to want to help, and then we just got it done, and we had a pretty solid, successful poster this year.
So, yes. And just to point out, as a kind of a joke in this situation, because at the end of the day, as professional as we make this interview, it's just a conversation between my brother and myself. And I should point out that the senior class, I believe, the class of 2025, where I am the secretary, actually was victorious in this poster contest that the president of the class of 2027 claims was a success. So I would just like to point it out that maybe the class of 2027's poster was not quite as much of a success as he's making it out to seem, as the class of 2025 and their secretary and their officer team actually won the competition.
I mean, it's fair. It just depends on how talented you are, honestly, because and also I feel like our poster contest is kind of corrupt. I'm not gonna lie, because someone decided, and our advisor was like talking to me about this. I was like, wait, that's a thing. So the clubs are allowed to compete against the classes, and guys, there's an art club, and so I was for sure that the art club was winning. But I honestly believe that the person that did the class of 2025 poster was probably in the art club too,
as well,
because they looked very similarly. Just saying. But yeah, it's a tough competition to win because there's a lot of
apparently
talent.
not for my class. My class has won it almost
Well,
every single
you
year.
guys might have the most talented person in school in terms of drawing wise.
Yes, I just thought I'd throw that in there as a good joke. My last major. Sorry, you can.
On a joking point, I was gonna say this earlier. So I have a funny class president story.
Okay.
So I have this one friend. He's kind of a jokester, and one day he's like, "Marek, you're the class president, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "You know what would be a hilarious prank if we didn't have a sophomore tea? Because apparently that's like a thing, and then we wouldn't have to like spend money on the sophomore tea, obviously." So
he's being fiscally responsible. Marek is a fiscally responsible president who's not going to blow money on a sophomore team.
So I'm in Spanish too, right? I'm in Spanish too, and I told my friends about how my friend told me this, and I was like, obviously this isn't gonna happen, blah 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 blah. And then I walk into English class later that day, and my class advisor is like, "What the heck's going on, Marek? You're spewing propaganda that we're not gonna have a sophomore tea." And I was just like laughing because people got like really upset and took it seriously. Like they thought that we weren't gonna have a sophomore tea, and everyone got mad at me for like no reason. So just thought it was funny.
That is funny. So the last question I want to ask you specifically about the presidency is, what are the plans for the presidency this year? So what's the plan with the budget? What's the plan with the fundraising for this year? I know currently the sophomore class is selling sandwiches and subs. That's going to be a fundraiser for you guys. And I just wanted to ask you, do you have any clever ideas for a second fundraiser? How are you going to raise money and get that and boost the amount in your account for the class of 2027? Any unique ideas for the sophomore tea? So kind of what's the agenda and what are the unique ideas that the president has?
So our second fundraiser, first off, we only get 2 fundraisers.
Correct.
Our second one is going to be in the spring. So we haven't decided 100% yet, but it's looking like it might be possibly a chocolate bar fundraiser. But that one is riskier than other fundraisers because you have to order in advance. So there's the possibility of like you order too many. So obviously that.
Whereas, just to clarify, with these other fundraisers, you go around, you sell, and then you put in the order.
Correct.
The order comes, you sort, and then
Yes.
you distribute.
Correct.
Okay.
And we picked a date for sophomore tea. It is in the middle of April. We haven't discussed theme ideas yet. I'm sure that will spark some controversy. I'm sure there'll be some interesting things on that. Just making sure that it's not like Barbie themed or anything, Don't want any dumb themes.
Yes.
I don't know how expensive it's going to be. I'm going to say it's not going to be terribly expensive, just because we don't have to rent out a venue or anything. It's just like in the elementary gym and stuff. So I don't think it's gonna be too.
The chocolate
terrible.
bar fundraiser is always a good one.
Yeah, that's
Just due to the fact
yeah.
that at a school they sell like crazy. The demand for those things is so high. The price, although the price rises, the profit goes the same. So as the prices rise on the actual amount that we pay for the chocolate bars, we raise the price as well at the school. The demand stays steady, and we constantly sell. I had just sold a box of these chocolate bars. We won't say the name of the brand on the show, but I've just completed selling a box for the National Honor Society, which you will also be inducted into, I believe, in the spring. So congratulations on that. That's a big accomplishment, joining me in that.
And I'm 1/4 away
From the Spanish?
from the Spanish.
From the Spanish Honor Society. Yeah. So good job in that. Congratulations. Those are big accomplishments. And so I was saying, I was selling these chocolate bars that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Same brand.
Mm-hmm.
And the box has 70 something chocolate bars, and I forget the exact number, but it's approximately 90 something dollars is the amount that I'm supposed to turn in. And I kid you not, I carried this box around with me, and the entire box was gone within 3 days. Kids coming up to you, middle schoolers especially, just buying tons and tons of chocolate.
Such a great fundraiser.
So, do you plan to run for re-election for president again next year? Like, will you want this responsibility again?
I would say there's a likely chance that you're gonna see Marek 2025 running for class president again. I haven't really thought about it a lot, but I don't think it's gonna drastically change my life either way. But I've had a good time being the president thus far, so I think it's likely that you'll see me back in the same position again.
Okay. We're just going to switch topics a little bit here.
Yep.
And we're not going to talk so much about student politics, student government, and we're going to talk more about what it's like to be a student. And you just got done saying about National Honor Society, Spanish Honor Society, to be humble, but to also be truthful. Both of us tend to be academic weapons. We are both rather intelligent students. And so let's just talk about, but we are different intelligences. And I feel like that's important to add because I know that on my first day of school this year, one of my favorite teachers, he's a civics teacher, and he talks about multiple intelligences, and everyone has different intelligences. Because some people think, well, my IQ might be lower, and that might be true. Someone might have less of a pattern recognition or less of an ability to construe words, to read and to comprehend, to understand written language. But then another person might be, like you said, a logical thinker. You can look and evaluate like nobody's business. So with that multiple intelligences and me and you, I think that you and I have different intelligences. And I think that, like you said, you are a more of the logical thinker. And this interview is great, but I think that I am more of a people communicator. Like, I think that my strength of intelligence, like, where does my intelligence fall? And it falls for me personally with how explaining to people, talking to people, getting ideas to people, conversation, communication. That's really my biggest strength. So I wanted to ask you to kind of compare our intelligences. What is your strongest academic subject?
So this is honestly like a very tough question. Because there's different ways to compare it. You could just compare it to, hey, what grade I have the highest score in. That I obviously don't think that's how it should be marginalized. So I think as a whole, if I were to pick one subject, it would be math. I'm typically really good at math. I see numbers very well. But I would say my most impressive grade would be in chemistry class because, in my opinion, that's my hardest class, and I've really excelled in it this year. But I feel like the reason behind that is because chemistry is a lot of math, so I already have a boost in that area compared to other people.
So let's kind of talk about what makes you a talented math student. Is it, are you more of a geometry guy? Are you more of an algebra guy? And you're also said that you're very good at chemistry, so which is also a very a science that contains more math than a science like biology, for instance. So what makes you a strong math slash science student? More of a STEM
Yeah.
type of field.
So, for the first part of your question, I have a pretty intelligent English teacher this year, and she said on one of the first days of school this year, everyone's mind is different. You have your geometry people and your algebra people, and in my opinion, it's not even close. I'm an algebra person, and I already see myself excelling more in algebra this year than I did in geometry last year, just because in my brain, how I perceive things, I see numbers a lot better than shapes. Shapes just like mess with my brain, and I really haven't been trained as much in that. So really, for me, I'm an algebra kind of thinker. So yeah, that's what I would have to say about that.
So, what do you think makes you so talented at algebra? Because I should point out, you are being humble to not mention while we're talking about algebra and math and chemistry that you just got back from a math competition not too long ago where Greenwood took some of their highest performing students in math related subfields and you were taken to compete at Dickinson College
Correct.
in a math competition. So I would like to, one, for you to tell me what makes you so good at algebra, and two, can you just take us through the math competition at Dickinson, how it went, what was the experience like?
Um, I would say what makes me so good at algebra is just like my whole life I've just always been good with numbers. One of the first memories of me just succeeding in math in general was I've always been really good at mental math. Like, whenever we were little, we couldn't use calculators, and I always remember in third grade we used to play this game called Around the World, where the teacher would hold up a flashcard and you would race to see who could say the multiplication problem faster. And once you got it right, you would just keep on going around the room. And I remember my classmates would be like so impressed because I could just go around, 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 and no one could ever beat me because I would be able to do it just like so fast in my head. So I feel like having that base really helped me understand everything.
Okay.
And so the math competition was a very interesting experience. So we did a variety of math tests, but the thing was, it was mostly calculus stuff, and I'm an Algebra 2 student, so I'm far away from calculus. So it was a lot of very challenging stuff, and it was a very humbling experience being around all these people that were way better at math than me, and some of these kids will be way better at math than I ever am. There were some geniuses there. It was a very good experience seeing all these very intelligent people in one place.
So going back to just different intelligences, this is interesting to me because, like you said, the logical thinking, the STEM careers,
Yeah.
science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You're great at algebra. You have excelled in chemistry, and that has not been really the story for me. Chemistry was extremely difficult for me. It was one of my weaker subjects. Of course, I still performed at a successful level just due to my hard work and putting in the time. And same with Algebra 2, but they were not quite as highly performing as you. I did not perform as highly in those subjects as you did. my intelligence is, like I said, comes from mainly my communications, my ability to work with other people, and my, I guess, ability to just work alongside others, help others. So my subjects of strength really have come to be, and I do have a rather good understanding of language, especially the English language, how to use it, how to write it, how to read it and analyze it. My strength, I'm pretty solid there, but mainly my strengths have come in social studies fields, political fields. So, for instance, this year I'm taking a government and politics AP class, which is an accelerated program online for government and politics. I've been very successful in that class, and that has a lot to do with public relations, government, how our world works, that kind of stuff, as well as business has been a very big success of mine, whether that's been entrepreneurship, DECA. Obviously, DECA is a huge company and a huge thing for kids in education. And I've been very, very successful in DECA as well. I've been a two-time state qualifier in the sports entertainment marketing category, including a district champion last year. So my ability to think on my feet and come up with ideas of how to convince others to purchase a product and knowing how the industries work through my knowledge of government and politics has been really my strength compared to your strength, which has been analyzing numbers and being more logical and more timed out and precise with how you work through different problems, which is something that my impatience has not allowed me to become quite as successful in. So, being that you've been so good at STEM, I would like to ask you, what future classes do you plan on participating in at the school or the higher education level within this STEM category? Obviously, you still have physics, advanced chem, advanced biology, veterinary science, some of these other science classes, and then math related, you have pre-calculus, you have calculus, you have stats, you have all this different stuff. So, what do you plan on participating in the future within those categories that you've become so successful in?
Yeah, so in math, I could definitely just see myself going all the way up through, and the highest at our school would be calculus, obviously. So the plan is to go all the way and take that my senior year,
Calculus.
get that off my plate before college. And the sciences, I'm unsure yet. I'm definitely considering taking advanced classes, whether that be advanced chem, bio. One that really entices me is the physics class, because that's an all-around science class, which I know will have lots of math. So I feel like it could be a potential class that could be fun for me, as well as something that would challenge me and that I could possibly excel in.
And as I've heard previously, just with your love of, you love astronomy. You
I love
astro-
astronomy, yes.
which is very there's a lot of physics related to that and how the world
very interesting.
how the world works. I know you've literally pointed out constellations to me, pointed out figures in the sky, planets, and things that I just, that's not like my knowledge. My knowledge is, again, the different intelligences. Like, a lot of this part has been about different intelligences, is economics, philosophy, politics, how people interact with one another, how I interact with one another, how the economy works, how businesses work. That's my strength. And you've always seen these science and technology, engineering and math fields has been a strength for you. And I think that you would excel in physics. Your love for the movie of Interstellar, I know it's just a movie,
Yeah.
but it really it is an introduction to astrophysics in a way.
Yeah.
So, is physics the class that you would mainly be excited for? Of those classes that you've talked about, advanced bio, veterinary sciences?
Yeah, I would say so. I'm definitely highly considering um, putting down classes on my watch list of taking junior and senior year.
So, STEM careers, it's growing. Everyone's talking about it. Teachers are encouraging people to get into STEM careers, and that seems to be a strength of yours. Is science, technology, engineering, and math is something that you've become extremely successful in. So, with STEM careers, obviously there's so many. It's not just engineering. There's so many careers in mathematics, so many careers in technology now with the way that the economy is moving and the way that our world is progressing with technology evolving every single day and along with the science as well. Is there any specific STEM careers that you're considering? Obviously, you're only 15, but is there any that at least spark your interest where you're like, I could possibly see myself getting into that field?
Yeah, so engineering definitely has sparked my interest, and I definitely should probably do more research on it. I've researched it a little bit, and the one thing that really entices me about engineering is just how broad of a career field it is. There's like 30 different kinds of engineers, so that's really something that I've been interested in looking more in depth into.
Engineers, such a great career. I mean,
Engineers have built our society, so it's a very important
engineers,
job.
and it's they're the brains behind everything, is what it is.
Yep.
Is because when you don't think about it, you see people building roads, you see buildings being built. Trying to think what else. You see buildings being built, like I said. You see roads being built, bridges, canals, everything, and it's all really designed by engineers. The math is done by engineers. You have to have people that understand how to work a space, and I just think you would be great in that field. Is there any specific types of engineering that you've looked into or seen at all that you're like, well, that kind of ties into not just my ability to do good with this STEM, but then also to just a field that is interesting to you as just sparking personal interest? Like a certain type of engineering. I know you said it's very broad.
Yeah, I'm not really sure on that one. There's so many different kinds of engineers, and they all of them for the most part are interesting to me. So I don't know which one really, because I haven't done enough research yet. Again, I should probably do more of that because that's definitely a potential career option for myself.
Fascinating. Okay, so we talked about that. Now the last kind of category I want to talk about is